Well, hello everyone, it's Pete here. I'm back with the Arrma Outcast 4S and I'm going to have a look at a couple of servo saver upgrades. So I did a video recently where I was talking about the steering problems I was having with this. Now it's not all to do with the servo saver, a lot of it's just the inherent design of the short wheelbase and the big chunky tyres and all that. I'll get onto that a bit later. Now I'm not going to go into great detail about how to get the servo in and out because I've done a video all about that. Basically you can get the servo out from the top here with the 4 screws around it there. Also you can take that whole unit out, it's that screw, that screw, that screw and that screw, and then you can get to the underside of the servo while it's still attached to that block with the ESC and everything. Now also the servo savers there's a linkage arm between that and the rest of the steering linkage, and you can unscrew that screw through there, and then the other screw you can unscrew through that hole there. So there's sort of many ways of doing the same thing on this really.
The servo saver upgrades I looked at were this one from Hot Racing and this one from Kimber, which didn't quite go to plan, but that was mostly my fault, as we'll see. Now I've got the servo out of the car and I'm just checking the resistance of the stock servo saver for comparison. The Kimber servo saver comes with various adapters depending on how many splines you've got on your servo. Now notice how the Kimber servo saver is square and the stock one is pointy. Will that be a problem? Yes, it was actually. You will need to find a way to attach the little linkage arm to this. So this is my first effort. It did feel quite stiff in my hand. It was also quite difficult to push it back in. Again. Now that I've got it back in, you might be able to see the problem, which is that a big square arm can't quite move around in the little space down there. What I need to do is to trim it down to be more pointy like the stock servo saver. What could be simpler? Right, so my efforts with my snippers to trim this down haven't gone well. Got a big crack through there, so this is pretty much useless now, unfortunately. I think if I did this again, I'd use a hacksaw maybe. But yeah, that hasn't gone well. So rather than get another one of these, I've got this one. So this is the Hot Racing Fixed Link Steering Servo Saver. So the body of this is metal. So providing the spring of this is actually strong enough, then this should be okay, hopefully. And it's a nice thin top, so it should fit within the space that it needs to go into. You get various adapters depending on your servo splines. And you get this metal arm to replace the plastic arm that's in the car. This seems to be the right one for this servo 25 spline. See what the resistance of it is. So it does seem to be harder to move than the standard one. Just a matter of attaching the little linkage arm and this can go back in the car. So with this one being more like the size of the original one, it's no problem with it snagging. Yeah, it definitely seems harder to force the wheels. So hopefully that's going to make a difference when I'm driving it. Now I was saying before that the problems with the steering on this aren't all to do with the weakness of the steering servo saver. It's to do with the general design of this truck. So first of all, just use the big rock to show how that handles. So with this one, if you were stood still and you had the steering to the right like that and you accelerated away, it would slide the back out like that and you'd be going off in that direction. Whereas with this one, you go right, you accelerate away, it would lift up the front and you'd be going straight in that direction. So a lot of the problem is the fact that it lifts the front very easily, and it is a stunt truck and it's understandable, but it can be a bit annoying. And the only way to steer it sometimes is to sort of go hard on the brakes to sort of lift the back off the ground, because these tyres have got so much grip that on a lot of surfaces they won't slide, so it is a bit awkward to drive on a lot of surfaces. Also, this is a heavier truck than the 3S car, so it's not as easy to throw around. With this one, if you've got it sliding around a corner and you put the power on, it should slide more, and then you might go into opposite lock like that. So this one really is easiest to drive on the throttle. So with this, even if you set it up properly for a corner and you're sort of slowing down and you steer and you get it sliding, then you start accelerating away, and what you want is for the back to come around like that. But what tends to happen is it lifts the front and then you start going straight off in that direction. So it is a bit of an inherent problem with the short wheelbase and the size of the wheels and all that. So you've got to sort of use it for what it is, but it is still enjoyable. So upgrading the servo saver isn't actually going to help it in those situations where the wheels aren't touching the ground or they're barely touching the ground. But when the front wheels are actually on the ground, hopefully a stronger servo saver will actually get the wheels round and get it pointing in the right direction. So let's have a quick look at the resistance of the servo saver before and after. Certainly feels a bit stiffer to me. I've probably heard enough already, haven't I? So onto the test drive, and you can see at low speeds you've got this nice tight turning circle. but as soon as you put the throttle on, you're going off nearly in a straight line. So as I was saying, the servo saver upgrade doesn't really help with that. If I do a bit of driving where I'm lifting off the throttle to try and get it around the corner, it does seem to work pretty well. It does seem to work a bit better than it did, but I still think you need quite a big space to run this truck. Now because it's summer, the ground's quite hard and the grass is short, and I think that's helping to get it to slide. So I think what I'm saying is the servo saver does make a bit of difference, but what makes the most difference is what you're actually running on. So if you can find a loose surface like this, it seems to do better. So the best surface I found was this dry, dusty ground. Really let the car slide around, and it was quite good fun here. So that's about it. In summary, the Kimber servo saver does look good, but it does need modifying, and you should do it a bit more carefully than I did. The hot racing one does seem very good and it doesn't need modifying. Like I was saying, the surface you're running on seems to make far more difference to the handling of this. If this was in any way helpful, then please press the like button and maybe leave me a comment. So that's all for this one. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.